Thanks for staying tuned. Water Resources Minister Suleiman Adamu says Nigeria is on the right path towards eradicating open defecation practice in the country by the target 2025. The minister was speaking during an online meeting with state coordinators of Open Defecation Free campaign across the states and the FCT. Musbaut and Wahab reports.
To get Nigeria rid of open defecation.
It is the first online meeting since the outbreak of COVID-19 in Nigeria between the minister and his foot soldiers. Driving this is assessing the campaign so far and the mechanisms set up in cleaning up Nigeria. Despite some challenges, including financing, the report from the state coordinators put in place to fast-track grassroots mobilization is encouraging. Since 2016, 27 local government areas are now confirmed open defecation free, while 10 more are only awaiting validation.
We have cause to celebrate a little bit.
However, 23% of the Nigerian population across 737 LGAs still remain in the practice of open defecation. Suleiman Adamu maintains that stakeholders, particularly state governments, have to double up efforts in this regard.
We would have expected by now that all the 36 states and FCT would have been agog, with this WASH action plan and implementing as much as possible. Some are doing a lot of things without necessarily declaring the state of emergency, but making a declaration of a state of emergency declaration is very, very important, because that will tell people that yes, now the government is really committed, we're concerned, and we're ready to commit. We're still taking baby steps, but I hope we'll make that quantum leap that we need to make.
Mr. President actually launched the Clean Nigeria Use the Toilet program last year, so the states are equally expected to follow suit, launch the same program, have their roadmap in place.
As our nation confronts...
Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, who is the chairman of the National Steering Committee on Open Defecation Free campaign, had earlier encouraged players to support the federal government's purpose-driven moves, which include state of emergency on the WASH sector and Executive Order 9 to ensure the target of 2025 is met. In Abuja, Musbau and Wahab, NT News.
And to talk more on the Open Defecation Free campaign of the Minister of Environment is our water, sanitation and hygiene correspondent, Musbaut and Wahab. Thank you, Musbaut, for joining us on Nationwide today.
It's my pleasure.
Now, Musbaut, in that report, you highlighted, some developments. Can we really consider this a progress?
Well, when we look at where we're coming from before 2016, where we did not have any single local government that was open defecation free. Mind you, we have some communities that are open defecation free, but when we talk about a all local government being open defecation free, there was none, not even the Federal Capital Territory that met that criteria. So between now and between then, 2016, when Banliku in Cross River State became the first open defecation free local government area in Nigeria, and then now where we have 27 local government areas now open defecation free, we have 10 local governments still waiting for validation. We can now say we have 37 local government areas that are open defecation free. Okay. So you can consider that a bit of progress, but when you consider the fact that we're talking of a country of 774 local government areas, so we still have 737 LGAs still to be cleaned up. So we can say we still have a lot of work to do in that regard. But what actually happened before 2018 was that there was no actually any policy direction or guideline in this drive, not until the president declared state of emergency on the sector and then launched the national action plan for water, sanitation and hygiene sector. So now we can say if this momentum is sustained and built upon, we can go places. Okay,
now tell us, how are the state governments, responding, and what more are expected of them?
Well, first and foremost, it should be clarified that these job of sanitation is primarily supposed to be the responsibility of state governments and local governments and not the federal government. In case of water, the federal government is supposed to provide the bulk water facility infrastructures and all of that. And when it comes to sanitation, you provide a policy direction. And that is what the federal government has done. But because we failed woefully at the end of Millennium Development Goals in 2015 when it comes to sanitation, the federal government had to come up and say, oh, we can't continue like this. We have to provide the guidance, the leadership role. And now the federal government is playing that role, and that was what brought about the action plan. And then the president said, now, as from then on, the federal government's efforts will be in commensurate with what the state governments are able to put on the table. So if the state governments are ready to work, the federal government is now ready to work with them. So the state governments are now expected to domesticate the action plan, declare state of emergency on the sector, wash sector, and as we speak, 16 states have done that, declare a state of emergency on wash sector, but we still have a lot of them still to do that. So we expect state government to stand up to their responsibility to clean up Nigeria. Otherwise, we'll still end up the way of 2015. Okay,
now with all this being done, you know, any hope of meeting the 2025 targets?
Well, there's hope. It's doable. Because when you consider the country that was the first in open defecation free before Nigeria became the capital of open defecation in the world, India, India had over 500 million people defecating in the open. But the Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, brought up the policy direction and political will. And in 5 years, they've been able to stop those people from open defecation. And here in Nigeria, we're talking of 47 million people. So it's doable since we have the political will now. So we expect the state government to follow suit and legislate against open defecation so that anyone who does that in the open will be sanctioned.
All right, thank you very much, Musbah and Wahab, our water, sanitation and hygiene correspondent. It's been a pleasure having you here today.
It's my pleasure too. Thanks.